Welcome, Kenny.
Hi, Carl.
How are you today?
I'm lovely. I'm in Tampa. I can see the beach, actually Clearwater.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, thank you for joining the show. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and we actually did a show, if you recall. I
I
just
did.
looked I looked at the timestamp on it. It was from 2021. So 4 years ago, you were my second guest, and we never published it. I never published it. So
In the car.
shame on me. Yeah, we were driving back. I think we are driving you to the airport. It started out quiet. That was part of the reason I didn't publish it too. Not an excuse, but we were in the driveway going slow and the audio was awesome. And then we got on the highway and then it was like road noise, blah. Anyway, today we are going to talk about careers. What has driven me? What has driven you in careers? So you and I have known each other for, I was trying to think the other day. I think I started at CarsDirect in '08, '09.
Long time.
So, and you have been a huge influence positively on my career. And so thank you for that.
Me too.
But well, thank me for what?
Thank you for being you. Thank
All
you for
right.
letting me help you. Thank you for being my friend.
All right. Well, there you go. No, so we're going to talk about how our careers have driven us. So I know you've been in the car business a long time. You know, I got in '93. I've talked about that in a couple episodes. And this podcast originally started, it was going to be all about cars and car stuff. But then I was like, you know what? A broader thing, a more appealing thing to the general public is what drives me as a person, what drives you as a person, and what helps us get off our hinders every morning and try and do good and be better people, right? So
Yep.
tell us how you got in the car business and where you started, because I think that's a pretty cool story.
Well, I started in Orlando. And I got in the car business because my brother was in the car business. So my brother was a general manager of a dealership in Orlando. Um, he had a little bit of fame because he was the number one Suzuki dealership in the country. And he was taking those little square little Suzukis and jacking them up with 33-inch tires and all this kind of business. And he created this little niche market of people driving them through the swamps and whatever in Florida. In fact, you still see some of them rolling around with they were called Mickey Thompson. I don't know what those tires are, but they were 33-inch Mickey Thompsons anyway. Um, so he was a general manager, and they had a Honda store. They had a handful of other stores that he was involved with. And I was in the military. I got out and moved to Orlando. He's like, "Come be in the car business." So I went and I looked, and this was 1989, and um, his people were all very much suit and tie kind of people, the traditional, typical, I suppose, stereotypical slicked hair back, kind of, you know,
Gold chains.
hardcore salespeople, pinstripes. And I looked, that just wasn't me, right? I looked at the operation. I loved the concept of, in selling cars, the camaraderie people have. I would say, on a side note, it's the closest thing to being in the military is being in the car business, because you have that diverse group of mixed people who all come together or thrown into this thing, from different paths, and it and you go through these, daily, weekly, monthly battles. But nonetheless, I looked at it and I said, I can't do this. So I had a job that I was doing, selling office supplies door to door, to businesses. And I kept that up until I saw this ad for what I thought was, I'm not quite sure what I thought it was, but I knew it had something to do with cars. So I'm like, I wonder what that is. Let me go look at it. And the company is called CarMax. So I went down. It was in Orlando. They were opening their fourth store, which is in CarMax or in Orlando. And I interviewed with the people, and they were like, "Yeah, we're hiring for all these kind of roles, and you seem like you'd be a good fit for a part-time sales job role," and which kind of shocked me a little bit because I thought I'd, go in and interview for some, great big job they have or whatever. with all my years of
Yeah.
experience of working at fast food restaurants and being in the military. But so at first I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. But then I thought, you know what, maybe this would be a cool way to find out about the car business and, just see what's going on. So I took this job and I worked my normal job. I did my normal job. And then on this job, you would do 1 to 2 nights per week, like 6 to 9. And then you would do, 2 full Saturdays and maybe a Sunday.
Can I
Yeah.
pause you right there for a sec?
Yeah.
Even that right there, as just for the regular folks who don't know about the car business, is unheard of to have a part-time job
Sure.
selling in the car business. So I'm sure that
Well,
was
to this
appealing,
day,
but yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
But you had to go through their training, which was, they did trainings at night every day and then through the weekend, I think for 2 weeks, the condensed version of their training. And then I'll never forget, like it was a Wednesday night. It was probably, I don't know, 8 o'clock, because there were a handful of us who had just became new. And, in the car business, they have a thing called the point, which is the person who stands, at the front, excuse me, waiting for customers to come in. And if you're on the point, you get the next customer. It's called an up. So I had to wait my turn. We drew straws or whatever, and it's probably 2 hours before I got an up. And I'll never forget. In walks this man and his son, and I go greet them, and hi, have you ever been to CarMax before? That's what you'd say. If you haven't, let me tell you about it. If you have, great, thanks for coming back. Blah blah blah. So the guy tells me right away. He says, first words out of his mouth. Hi, how are you? Who I am? Anything. He's like, I'm only here to look, just so you know, I'm not buying anything. I'm like, totally okay. You're the first customer I've ever had, and so I'm not even sure I know how to sell you anything. So that's said. Um, just trying to be funny. So we go walk the lot. We look at a bunch of cars. CarMax, you have the ability to open up the car at the car with the key, which doesn't mean you have to run back and forth, which I think delays the process. But we could open up cars, we could look at them. They did their own thing. I let them look at some cars, look inside, and then when they were done, we were walking in, and I said to them, which was part of our training, would you like to take 2 minutes to see what the payment would be? And so they asked them, like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, I can show you an estimate, very easy in 2 minutes. Or if you want to give me 3 or 4 minutes, I can actually show you the real payment. And he's like, well, why don't you go ahead and show us the real payment, 3 or 4 minutes. Because at CarMax, you wouldn't have to go fill out papers and, go submit them to somebody and do all of that. You would literally sit at a computer, type in their information, which was very little, because in order to go look at cars, test drive cars, you would get their driver's license, all that information would be preloaded. So when you sat down, all I had to do was enter a social security number. And literally within 20 seconds up on the screen, popped the series of payments, months, corresponding interest rates, all the rest. And he leaned in. I'll never forget it. Him and his son leaned in to look at the computer, and they're like, and he pointed at it, and he pointed to a payment, and he said, the payment is $245 a month for this car. And I'm like, yeah. He said, we'll take it. And I was blown away. I was like, how did that happen? This guy wasn't buying a car. Anyway, it was a cool experience, and I think that experience, not being, I think I've talked to thousands of people in the car business, and most people's first experience selling a car is usually hard and controversial. The sales managers want to make it really difficult for you. And I have a good friend of mine, who was a writer. He took a job in the car business selling Cadillacs, and he speaks well, he's funny, people like him, and he got it up and he walked them around. They found a Cadillac. He came back in, and he's like, okay, what do I do now? The guy's interested, and so back in those days, and he was still in some places, they did a write-up, or Foursquare, whatever you want to call it, and they wrote the numbers all over the paper. And so they turned around and handed it to my friend, and he looked at it, and he's like, wait a minute, this is $5,000 more than the car is listed for. The payment is like ridiculous. The interest rate's too high, and you're asking for $8,000 down. And they're like, yep, you go deliver it. And so he was like, I'll go deliver it. So he went and go deliver it. And of course the customer, skewered him, and he came back in. But to that dealership and to those salespeople, it was like a badge of honor that he would be willing to go deliver that, and I think a lot of people in the car business have those type of experiences, where they're trying to mold you, teach you, whatever. Mine was more about, hey, add a little bit of levity, be nice, let the customer kind of be in control, and they'll say yes more often. And I think I've always applied that to everything I've kind of done, in the car business. Just, treat other people as the way I suppose you would want to be treated in that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great story. And like you said, most of us, when we're selling our first car, it's not that simple. CarMax makes it, CarMax, from a quality of car perspective, I don't think there's many that are better because of their inspections and what they actually sell. Their cars aren't the cheapest, for sure, but the
Correct.
experience and the time you save is well worth it. If you've never gone to a CarMax, I would encourage you just to go through the process to see how different it can be, because it doesn't have to be like going to the dentist. It can be that easy, and there's a lot of dealers switching over to
I
that
think, well, there's a
process.
lot of traditional franchise, Ford, Chevy, BMW, whatever, who have that same, core principles, and, treat people nice and have a great experience. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's what made me love the car business, was like, wow, I talked to a person, we sold something, you felt, I mean, there's and everyone has it, no matter what job you have, right? Whether you have you make art, or I think people want, you're from a what drives you. I think people want to win, right? People want to have a feeling or a sense of accomplishment, and like, hey, I did something good today. I did something that either helped somebody, helped my family, helped myself. Um, no matter what business you're in. So I think if you just think that way, that's just, I've told people throughout the car business, people aren't looking to buy a car. They're looking to answer questions they have about their situation, their life, and they're wondering if your particular car or your particular company can help them, provide some clarity and maybe give a solution to them. And I think I've always looked at consumers that way, not like, can you buy a car? Do you look homeless? Did you drive into a piece of junk? Are you in a 1-year-old car, which means you might be buried? I just always looked at it and it's like, just tell me what you're trying to accomplish today, and I'll help you, even if it ain't
Yeah.
a car.
Yeah, you have, and I don't know who you stole this from or if you created it, but one of the greatest things, and I teach it to everybody I talk to in any line of work or any business outside of the car business, is Mr. Customer, what are you trying to accomplish and how do you want the process to work?
Yeah.
When you say those two things, and I may have altered your the way you taught me,
You
but
sound you sounded nicer than I do.
well, it's not about that. It's really about
Yeah.
it throws the customer off because
Sure.
normally they're told, here's how you do this, this is how we do
Yep.
it here, this is how
Yep.
I want it done. And there, when you say, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yep.
I want to get a nice car, right? Or I want to
Yeah.
lower my payment, or I want to get rid of this piece of
Yeah.
junk. And how do you want even though we know it ain't going to go the most likely the way the process,
Sure, but
but
you should start it that way, right? I
yeah,
mean, to me, I've always, said to people when I became a manager and I helped people, close deals, and then when I became a general manager and helped more people, and we ran a big brokerage at CarsDirect.com where we were selling 1,500 cars a month. I would ask every single sales rep who came to me with an issue about a customer or a situation, what is the customer's need? And of course, if you were new and hadn't asked me that question before, you would say they need a car. I'm like, no, they don't need a car. There's a need behind the car. The need could be, I got a new job. I'm having a baby. I got divorced. I, lost my car. There's a lot. There's many needs. Right. My car is broke down. I'm worried about my payments too high. The gas. There's so many different things. And I think if you can tap into it, that's the what are you trying to accomplish, right? Tell me what you really want to happen today, and I'll tell you if we can make it work.
yeah,
Um, and we'll make it easy. That to me was what it was, because that's what I would want to be, right? I mean, that's how I buy things now, and literally, it's funny because I will tell people, when I'm going to do something, like I got an air conditioner recently, and I had this one guy came in, and I'll never forget it. He went through his entire process, didn't ask me a single question, right? He went around, looked around my house, spent like an hour, came in, had this entire process, and it was all scripted, you could see, right? It was
Yeah.
all standard, flipped through a binder, showed me some pages, gave me a paper, here it is, you know, asked me no questions. And it shocked me, right? Because I just expected, I guess, something different. Needless to say, I called somebody else. And this time, before the person said anything, I said, hey, look, when you go look around out here, let me help you when you get ready to come back in here. There are certain things I want and certain things I need and certain things my wife wants out of this project. So it would be really great if you spent some time asking us what we want the outcome to be, what we're looking to accomplish. Then you go do all your stuff. Then you come back. And he's a young kid. And he actually thanked me for that. He goes, we don't usually ask questions like that because we want to get in, we want to see the equipment, and we want to focus on something's broken or something's whatever. He goes, but you're 100% right. I need to start thinking, what's important to you, right? Because we have a unique setup in our house, and a couple areas are hot and a couple areas are cold. And yeah, our thing was broken, but we didn't want it just fixed. I want to fix a few different things. So anyway, so I mean that's the point of it. I seek first to understand, I suppose, if you're going to be successful in anything in life.
Yeah. Well, we got two of these for a reason over one of these, right? And so that's an important thing. Um, that that I think a lot of even kids, and as I'm doing these programs and we're doing these programs, even the talk over culture that is in prevalent, I think, in a lot of social media and regular media. You can't, it's so loud, you can accomplish nothing. So great story. You and I, by the way, we did not call each other and pick green shirts today. That was just a complete accident. Um, but hey, and I thought with the background, you got a real background. I got this fancy fake office here, but uh, there was no rhyme or reason behind that. But you and I are perfect examples of, and this relates to our careers, right? And how we got to where we got. It's not about what we know, because I don't think you and I are the smartest people in the world. It's about who you know.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I'm grateful for you, Ken, because I knew a lot of people here locally in Chicago. I had a lot of contacts, as you know, when we go around when and if you're in town. But nationally and regionally, I didn't know anybody. And you, with your connections and your contacts and your energy, introduced me to so many important people that I'm forever grateful. But that just goes back to the not what you know, it's who you know. So
Yeah.
not that we're not street smart, because I think we are,
Right.
but and we do know a lot about our industry, which is cars. But in a career thing, like you said earlier, in the context of a person, we want to win. So I want to win in my career, and you've been a big part of helping me win in my career. So thank you.
Mhm.
And I know you've done that for many, many, many people. So keep on. I think that's why people love you and they love working with you and for you. Because again, it's who you know, not what you know.
Well, I think many people have said to me, right, like, how did you get where you got? I mean, like you've been to the pinnacle. I suppose it goes back to something my mother, I kind of always instilled in me. My mother came to the US when she was maybe 16, 17 with a child, um, married to a military serviceman, you know, went to nearly Canada. They were in north of Duluth, Minnesota. Didn't speak English. And what she told me growing up, which is what a lot of parents say to kids, is pay attention. But she didn't say it like that. Not like, hey, pay attention, stupid, or pay attention to me. It was pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to what's going on. And she would always say, you can learn from other people's success and other people's failures if you pay attention. You don't have to learn it all yourself. You don't have to learn all those failures yourself if you pay attention to other people's. You don't have to try and figure out what success is if you pay attention to that, to what hard work is. I mean, it was very simplistic, pay attention to who works hard, work like them. Pay attention who doesn't work hard, don't work like them. And I think if you take that pay attention to what has benefited me through knowing these people that I've got to know over the years and, as you say, introduced you to, I've always looked at it from a lens of I'm trying to pay attention and learn from these people, right? I've been fortunate to spend quality time like, with just amazing people who've built, billion-dollar enterprises. Red McCombs, Roger Penske, there's more, right? And then, just other great leaders in our industry that I've gotten, I'm fortunate to be around and spend quality time with. And my whole time that I'm with anyone is I want to pay attention. What do you do well? Where have we failed at in life? And just learn from that. Because I think you can get better without having to experience all the highs and lows yourself if you pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're really good at relationship selling. I think separately you and I both did that. I'm not a high pressure guy. I'm not, follow the rules, the steps to the sale, all that. I want to know about you and
Sure.
again what you're trying to accomplish before I care about what I'm trying to sell you or offer you or service. And you're you've been a really good example of that. Um, and I think, we're talking about careers. So what and we could spend hours talking about all the different jobs you and I have had in the car business, outside of the car business. But what are you currently doing today in your current job, your current career? And just tell us a little bit about that. It's a very unique company and product, I think.
Yeah, it is. The company is called Autocomplete, and it is a automotive insurance marketplace, you know, big broad term. But the way that the company was constructed is very unique. That is for franchise dealers only. Um, and it is part of the process of a sale, but it happens post sale. So no one at the store does anything. So it's a digital insurance verification platform that a customer will engage with after the sale has been closed to verify their policy and um, then can opt in to get a new quote. And what's interesting in the way the insurance works, which is a very heavy regulated industry, more so than auto, more so than practically anything. Um, if you don't shop around your insurance every couple of years, you're probably overpaying. Your current insurance company cannot call you up and say, Carl, you've been with us for 10 years. We'd like to give you a discount. We want to reward you. It doesn't work that way. Again, it's heavily regulated and the prices have to be listed, and stated. And so if I'm an insurance company and I say, okay, my cost is X and my insurance prices are going to be this based on this type of risk, then that's what they are. And then if I raise the price every year, then everyone gets a price increase. So the only real way to know if you're getting a great deal is to shop around, which people very seldom do, right? And it's funny because there's all sorts of ads all over TV, right? Liberty Mutual, great emu ads, right? Allstate, Farmers, everyone. There's insurance everywhere you look. Yet we're not sitting there watching that going, I think I should go get a quote today from, the emu guy who's, funny and cool. But when you buy a car, that is actually a time you actually have to go engage with your insurance. So that's why this program works really well because we're right at the time when you're thinking about insurance and it takes 2 clicks to compare a policy to your exact policy and see if we can save you some money. So it's been kind of cool launching this. Um, it's the only product I've ever sold to dealers where it doesn't cost them anything, doesn't
Yeah.
interrupt their process, and it has a lot of benefits for the customer and the dealer.
Well, and I think I shared this with you. One of our mutual customers, who is a very, very big group, was doing some little background checking on your company and your product. And he's a very smart and wise and suspicious person, but went through the process. He's like, he sounded like a little kid, which was funny. He's like, and I saved 700 or 800 bucks on my pot. I mean, I'm like thinking to myself, dude, you've been in the auto business for as long as me, 30, 40 years. And he never even shopped his insurance.
Yeah.
This guy runs F&I for a huge
Yep.
company. And it made me chuckle because he thought it was a great experience. He thought it was a great product. And he actually took advantage and switched. So, and you've told me a few stories like that. We talked yesterday. I interviewed a mutual friend of ours, Sean Rains, and we talked about, and I forget who, and maybe we can keep that a little anonymous, but the story of a major OEM that was spending $500 million a year on in marketing and wanted to move the needle. And then he spent another 500 million and said, yeah, we moved the needle, but he couldn't tell you which 500 million was working. So
Sure. Sure.
it's interesting from tying back into your current business, how if you can take out, like you said, it doesn't cost a dealer anything. It doesn't cost the consumer anything. It's really one of the very few products in all automotive where with a couple clicks and you verifying some stuff, you can actually save a bunch of money, which
Yeah.
to me is just unbelievable for both dealer benefit and consumer benefit. So yeah, it's cool to see the guy who found it. I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it. But has he done something like this before? Is he um, is he a tech guy? Is he a car guy? What's the story
I
behind the
would
company?
say he is a tech guy. He had built a company called Square Trade, and Square Trade was a warranty company on electronics. And um, his name is Ahmed Kashigi. He's a very driven guy. I actually am paying attention to him and can learn some stuff from him. Um, but he's very purposeful in everything he does, right? So when he had that company, he literally laid out, we are going to win Walmart, we are going to win Best Buy, we're going to win Target, we're going to win, and he did. He eventually won every eBay, every electronics seller or reseller. He had a warranty product in there, and he eventually sold that company to Allstate for 1.5 billion with a B. And then, he worked for Allstate for 3 years. And then, after being retired for a short period of time, decided, there's something that can be fixed with how insurance currently works. Um, Especially given the high cost of, you know, customer acquisition. We face this in the car business. You and I talk all the time about ways you could solve, you know, from customer to dealer, just the fear and the anxiety of buying a car and all of that. And there's a lot of that has gone away with dealers who have really great practices and transparency up front. But most consumers still think like, if I don't have a relationship with these people, I may get taken advantage of, right? So I need to now go look online. I need to do some research. I need to find some pricing. I need to find some other stuff and, see what a good deal is, on and on and on. At the end of the day, if you're truly going to be successful, you have to find a way to bridge those two things together with transparency, right? Um, and if you were to build a company, I don't care how great your idea is, said, hey, look, we've got this cool idea and we can make this website and consumers can find price, they can do this, and they can, no matter what your idea would be, you still have to spend a ton of money to get a consumer to know you exist, right? So this
Yeah.
is why you can't just jump into the business and say, I'm going to create this wonderful thing, and this is the same with insurance companies and with dealers. We spend a tremendous amount of money trying to capture a customer eyeballs, right? Um, Top of mind awareness. And it's just too costly to be able to just say, well, I've got these great ideas and let me put these great ideas out there. And, that's kind of insurance, how that works. If you look, that's why Allstate and Progressive and Geico and I mean the list goes on and on and on of commercials that we've all seen, right? Yet we see them all. I don't think anyone's going, that's a cool little gecko or lizard or whatever it is. Let me see what my insurance rates would be today while I'm watching, whatever I'm watching. Um,
Well, if you look at Kenny, the spend, I think that last time I looked at the top advertising spenders in the world, let alone or US, let alone the world, was insurance companies and pharmaceuticals.
yeah,
It's just bonkers. And
yeah,
obviously that advertising cost specifically to your career right now in your business, which is why again, I think what you guys are doing is brilliant, is you're interrupting that customer so you have zero customer acquisition cost
yeah,
because they have to verify. I mean, I'm sure
sure.
behind the scenes there's cost, but they have to verify their insurance and then do you want to save money or not? Right?
Yeah,
There's and
right.
and there's no advertising, there's
Time,
no
right?
nothing.
It's
It's a
time.
beautiful, beautiful interruption point in the process that really doesn't interrupt the dealer's process in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea, and um, yeah, I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad you're out there, and it solves a lot of things. Going back to your earlier reference to solving a problem for people, you're
Yeah,
solving it on both sides, which is a rare thing in our space. Um, I know we talked, you and I have talked for years about how accepting and open the car business is. I mean, I love cars. I love buying them. I love selling them. I love fixing them. I love flipping them. Um, and I love helping people. And you referenced this a little bit, and you and I get calls all the time. Your father-in-law is going through this right now, or did, is help me get a good deal. And
yeah,
really, I mean, we probably should just say it out, out loud, is every new car to everybody who's listening or watching or has a friend or family member buying a car, everybody pays the same for the new car, correct?
yes. Every dealer does.
Every dealer. So if you see a price online on an ad that's thousands below everybody else, red flag, right?
Yeah,
It's
there's a reason
it,
why.
there's a reason. And you're probably going to get in there, and they did a good job because you bid on that, that the old bait was out there, but just be
Yep.
be leery. On the used car side, it really depends so much on region, reconditioning, right? Where you live, what supply and demand is a huge part of that, right? Is it a very rare in-demand car? You're going to pay more. That's just how it is. But
Yeah, I
reaching
think.
out to somebody with experience, again, back to the who you know, Ken and I are happy to help. There's thousands of friends and contacts that we have that can help you walk through it to make it not painful, to make it transparent, to make it easy.
I
Um,
probably sell 2 cars a month on average to people I know or people who randomly find me. Obviously, I'm not selling them actually,
right,
but
right,
I
right.
go and I get the information. What are you trying to accomplish? I get the information. I provide it to them, but then I give them some education, right? So when I talk to people, like I just helped my brother-in-law, and he's like, "Here's what I want, and I want a good deal, and I want to trade my car, blah blah." So I handle all that, and I called him. He's like, "Is that a good deal?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a good deal." And you know, it struck me that obviously I have inherent trust with him. So he said yes, right? And in that moment, I'm thinking, well, where does that inherent trust come from a customer who doesn't know their salesperson or just met them, right? You actually have to. That's why the pay attention, understand, seek first to understand really matters, because that's the only way you can get past that hurdle for a person to feel comfortable with you to say, I believe this person. Um, but the car business and the way it works is so complex. I tell everybody, look, I'm going to get you a good deal. I'm not going to get you the single greatest deal out there, right? Because I don't think that necessarily exists. Because I'll tell you why. I'll give you a perfect example. I know some dealerships who sell their cars, new cars, on average for $1,000 more than other dealerships in their town, right? So as a consumer, you might say, well, let's say I'm looking at a Honda Accord. Do I want this Honda Accord for 25 or do I want that one for 26? Right? Now, the difference with the person who's 26 is they have a really nice dealership. They have a great experience. They invest a lot in their people. They have highly educated, experienced, great people, who have careers at this place, you know. The other place that usually tries to undercut them has very inexperienced, you know, uneducated on the sales process and the car business. And usually the people who start here at 26 and go over there to 25 end up back at the 26 because of the experience. So, you can't just look at it at just price. You know, as you know, there's very little money in the car business in general, in the front end margin of a car, right? It's I remember, back in the day, there was a dealer who used to just say, "Hey, we make 2%," right? And kind of sounds like a lot if you did math on it, right? But it really isn't a lot, or 4% or whatever the number is, right? Because in general, you would think if you were in a business, in any business, and you were like, well, let's take jewelry. People are like, well, there's 200% markup there,
Yeah.
or sporting goods or golf clubs or any kind of stuff, I mean, the car business, yeah, we sell higher ticket items, but the fact, if you were to ask people, what do you think a fair profit is? I saw a study done on this years ago where they asked people, if you're buying a $30,000 car, what do you think a fair profit is? The average number was around 6% that people were saying. Okay, so it's $2,400. That number doesn't exist, right? Now it has at times when cars got light and demand was higher, but in general, dealerships are in the single digits, 2 3 4%. And I suppose if you want to save another $100 or another $200 and you want to risk experience or risk you know other things that come with the program, like what did you get for
Time.
trade in, time, financing, the whole experience,
Yeah,
So
it boggles my mind, and there's a lot of data behind this and a lot of studies and a lot of press releases. There are only two businesses in America that operate on a 2% or less net margin, and that is automobiles and groceries,
Yep.
right? If you wanted to get into automobiles or groceries, I think you're nuts because the margins are so skinny.
Sure.
But a very good, honest, reputable. Most car dealerships, as you and I have discussed, are a cornerstone of their communities, right? They employ a bunch of people, and you have had this soapbox for years, and I got some notes even on it that the car business is kind of limitless. It takes
Yep.
people who are come out of jail, come out of the military, come out of college, no education at all, and it's this level playing field that's limitless. And talk to you kind of go around talking to groups and people talking about how empowering the car business is.
Yeah, I think I mean, to me, that's why I say it's kind of like the military, right? If you were to join the military, you will see people who retire at the highest rank, right? General, chief master sergeant, right? Or you see people who retire at various other levels, right? It The military encourages you to accomplish all you can, but it basically allows you to say, you know what, this is the level that I want to work at. This is the level of input, or not input, but level of what I want to put into this, right? Because you only get out of stuff what you put into it, and that's universal in life.
Yeah.
And the same thing is with the car business, right? If you got in the car business, I know a person who worked in the car business and was a salesperson their entire career, 30 years, wildly successful. People always asked him, why don't you become a manager? Why don't you become a manager? Why don't you become a manager? He's like, I don't want to. I don't want to manage people. I love selling to other one to people at my gym, at my church, at my whatever. And he made a great career out of it. Right. And then there are other people who say, no, I would love to sell. And then I would love to teach people how to sell. And then I'd love to oversee, and learn about the dealership. And I think that's what the car business affords you. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, you know, what your beliefs are. It's a level playing ground for everybody. I've met so many great people with so many stories of, you know like you said, I know people who have been in jail before, and the car business has given them a second chance at life. And I know people who have had career jobs. I know a guy who was a movie producer in Hollywood and actually produced a couple of big things, and lo and behold, through life, situations and, issues, that person found themselves in the car business, thriving there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of people, you know, you should look at the car business, but people are like, I don't want to sell cars. There's so much more than selling cars there, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously the service department, there's, business development jobs, there's all sorts of like, um, admin positions. And I think the car business, again, is one of those very rare places where who you are, where you come from, what you believe, what you think doesn't have a limit on where you can go,
Yeah.
right? You can accomplish whatever you whatever you want. Pay attention, work hard. Um, and we've seen it. We've seen countless stories of success stories of people who started out. I remember you introduced me to a young lady at your Nissan store you ran, that started as like the phone person on the front desk and you know
Receptionist. Yeah.
receptionist and escalated all the way up through all the jobs to, finance manager at BDC and, making
Yeah.
$100,000 a year, single mom. I mean, it's just a great story. It's a great story.
Yeah. That was Samantha. Who now she's in your business. She's in insurance.
All right.
It's funny because again, looking back on my notes, just if you want, I mean, you can learn about business and sales and marketing and HR and training and accounting and customer service and social media. I mean, if you talk about a training ground for pretty
Sure.
much everything you would need in life, the car business is it. I think a lot of people, again, a stat that's out there, I haven't checked recently, but the average salesperson in the car business, I think a lot of people think, oh, they're making million. It's about 39, 38, $40,000. So it's not huge money, but you and I both know salespeople in the car business that are making over $200,000 selling
Sure.
cars. So
Sure.
that's a huge span on there's general managers out there making $1 million plus. Many of them have this much education, like barely made it out of high school. So again, and there's about 17,000 franchise dealers
Yep.
across the US and about 30 to 40,000 independents. So big part of our economy. Like you said, all the satellite businesses, the parts, the manufacturing, all that stuff is it's a huge cornerstone.
Yeah, it's funny. I've said this to dealers before, and I truly do mean it. But if you think about the ecosystem, right, you have all the manufacturers who make the cars, you have all of the banks and all of the products and all of the everything else, and you've got the people who build the dealerships and the landowners, and there's so much to go into it, but the only person who pays everybody is the dealer. The
Yeah.
dealer is the only one who pays everybody. They pay everybody. They pay the manufacturer, they pay their employees, they pay their city and state local taxes, they pay vendors, they pay marketing, they pay, the yard man,
That,
the grass, they pay everybody. And
that's why the margin, Ken, is only 1
correct,
or 2% because they
correct,
do.
correct. Um,
It's like a legal money laundering business that just, again, everyone, you and I both sat in those chairs. Every single person that walked in the door was, trying to sell me something, trying to
sure,
get
sure,
something from me.
sure.
And again, just a very important part of many of our communities are car dealerships. So, and again, didn't want to talk, the purpose of this channel, this conversation is really to talk about how our careers have driven us, but it has allowed us to dip our toes into other things, some high side hobbies outside of automotive, which have been super rewarding. This here for me, this creative outlet for me has been, I probably wouldn't even have known how or known who to talk to if I didn't have that, my career these last 30 years driven me to get to meet people like you and Sean and Stan and the other folks that we've talked to and interviewed and continue to. So um, I've got uh, I started out with with Jane, as you know, my daughter, who's co-host on the program, has done a couple with me. And I was gonna do these. It was 3 questions as a warm up, but it's actually 4 now. We didn't
Okay.
obviously warm up with them, but kind of a rapid fire question, which I think you'll enjoy. And then just two final questions after that, just to keep under our hour here. You ready?
Yep.
It's rapid fire. Okay. What was your first car?
My first car was a Toyota Celica
Toyota Celica.
ST, two-door coupe,
Nice. Stick or
manual,
automatic?
manual,
Manual, like most of us. That's
four-speed.
how we learn.
Yep.
What's your current car?
I just got a Hyundai Ioniq 5 from my son, who is a general
Oh,
sales manager at Hyundai of downtown LA.
you like it? I remember you just bought that a month.
It's $206 a month with tax on a lease.
Nice.
And B, it's a $66,000 car. Has everything under the sun on it, and it's amazing.
So that's your current car. What was of all the cars you've had, because I know you've had a lot, and I would even say for you, you could include your demos at the dealership. What's your all-time favorite car that you've owned or driven?
When I was in the military, I had a 280Z that I loved.
Mm. What year?
It was a 1982.
Stick or auto?
It was an automatic, and it was a 2+2. If you remember, they had that kind of like to get people in the back seat there.
Yeah, children only
Yeah.
for the most part. And what is your dream car?
Mm, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be something like a X7, whatever it is. So it can be an X7, it could be a Denali, it could be something like that. But whatever it is, I want to build it myself and not just normal stock build. I want like super high-end leather and just some other stuff. So I think if you had the ability to be able to go and hand select your car exactly the way you want it. I went to my mother, as I mentioned, from Germany. I've been to Germany many times. I went to the BMW museum over there where it's interactive and you can see how they build all the BMW products and everything. Very cool process. But they also walk you through a area um, where people come who have ordered their cars. So you can order a car, build it out yourself, go over to Germany, drive it for 2 weeks, and then then they would ship it to you in the US. And they had some people's cars there that they were showing you. And this one person, obviously you got to have a lot of money to do this, why it's a dream car, but there was one customer who was, he was from Hawaii, and he wanted this Hawaiian wood in his inlays, right?
Wow.
They that's cost him a lot. I think they said it was like 30 grand to get that specific Hawaiian wood
Wow.
in there, and he got a very specific color of leather. I just thought that was cool. If you had I suppose, all the money in the world, that would be my dream car, I suppose, to build my own, um, whatever it is.
Have you been to, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, have you been to one of these new Lincoln standalone
Yeah,
studios?
yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah.
that's they have that whole thing. Yeah. Maybach does it as well. I think
Yep.
Porsche does it as well, where you can actually, pick your leather, pick your
Yeah.
wood, all that
Tesla did
stuff.
it in the early days. I mean, that's costly for them to be able to do. You can't do it and do it at scale. You
No,
can't do it and commoditize it because it just doesn't, it's too costly. But, I suppose if you, like I said, if you had all the money in the world, you know,
you go for it. All right. So here are my last two questions for you. Let me pull up my little notes over here. I'm not torquing my head everywhere. And again, Ken, thank you for taking time out to do this because I think it's going to help a lot of folks. Um, Words of wisdom. So my last two guests, I'll tell you after what. So give me some words of wisdom. This would be for the world, or maybe just for your kids or your grandkids. Now that you're a grandpa, what would you tell them? Hey, if you can do this, have this mindset or do this one thing or whatever, what would that be?
um, well, I suppose I would carry on words of my mother and start with pay attention. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think we could all just be a little nicer to one another, right? I think everybody has their own situations, right? And no matter how great your situation is or how bad your situation is, it's unique to you, right? You can't put yourself into somebody else's, you know, great situation, wealthy, big car. You can't just say, I want to be in that situation, put yourself mentally there, right? And we can certainly sympathize with people who have really bad situations, but we all deal with our own, right? We all deal with our own highs and lows. And I think that that becomes super important to us, and it changes how we think of other people's situations. And I think that if we could just maybe, like for myself, I have to check myself. I suppose that to simplify it, just maybe check yourself a little bit, because you don't know what's going on in other people's lives. And a little bit of kindness goes a long way. So just be nice and be kind. No matter how great you think their life is, um, or how bad you have it that you want to, you know, share that or push that on other people.
Yeah. Always somebody worse off, right?
Yep.
Always
Yeah.
someone better off too. I will tell you the Stan's words of wisdom were just begin,
Yep.
just start, right? Whatever your ideas are, whatever your thoughts are, whatever your motivations are, just start. Because
Yep.
we talked a lot when I talked to Sean last night. We talked a lot about all the mistakes and errors and failures of people like Thomas Edison, Abe Lincoln, Wayne
Yep.
Gretzky, Michael Jordan. If those dudes gave up, what a different world we would be in, right? So begin, but then don't give up. And then Sean actually threw, which I really liked his be the difference. Whatever
Yeah.
you do, be the difference. And the positive difference, not that negative Nelly difference. So great. And I like your, pay attention and be nice seems so easy, but it's not always. So Ken, be when you're getting on a plane or you're in your, traffic jams, be nice, Ken. Be nice.
What is it?
And last but not least, who would you or who do you think should be on the show? Because we're talking about what drives you. Who would be, and again, you're welcome to be with that person, but who would you help get on the show or should be on the show? Again, just to tell their story. These are stories that drive you and hopefully will drive you to do and be better. That's again the point of
Um,
this show.
well, I mean, I could give you plenty of names of people who should be on the show, but who do I think you should find somebody young in the car business, right? Um, all those names you mentioned are quite old people, including me.
Yeah.
Outside of Jane, she ain't old, but she
Yeah.
acts like she's old. She acts like she's maybe 40.
Okay.
So I would say find somebody young, in their 20s in the car business or in any business and just talk about, because I think it's very different, right? That's the other thing, for people like us, our age, right? If you're going to be successful in life, we have to work with people, who were us back in the day. But in today's society, it's very different, right? The challenges they face, the things that they are presented with, it's very different than what we were at. I think we can, again, pay attention and learn from everybody, but put somebody young on there and maybe bring some new perspective to, especially the car business or an affiliate business.
So you're giving me a general type of person. Do you got a
Sure.
name of a person?
um,
Because Dylan would be a good one, but because
yeah,
he's youngish.
yeah, you've already spoken to enough of us spotters.
Yeah.
How about I don't know, Carl. I have to think about that.
Well, think about it. Somebody who's impressed you in the last, 6 or 12 months in your new role, your new company, whatever. But yeah, I agree. I mean, that's kind of why Jane's important to this, just that different perspective. One, she's female. Two, she's young. She's tech savvy. But yeah, I mean, I really the goal of these conversations is just it's really about perspective because me and you are same age, old white dudes, similar careers. Yeah, we got stuff to teach and share and glean, but we're very similar. And
Yeah,
unfortunately that's our circle of influence. So yeah, it's different people. Like a lot of the gals that we worked with at TrueCar, the racing gals, I want to get some of them on here.
sure.
Because they're some of them are still involved in racing, some are not. But yeah, but thank you
Stories.
for the recommendation. if you think of an actual name, that would be awesome. And you'd contact them. But thanks again, Ken, for all you've done for me, for my family, for our industry, and for just America, for your service. No joke, for your 2 services. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.